Number 10. Yeoman America. Back in Avengers Volume 3 Number 2 in January of 1998, Morgan Le Fay's reality distortion wave caused the time period to be altered to a medieval setting, which altered the Avengers' clothing, speech patterns, and thought processes. For Steven Rogers, he became Yeoman America, a knight-like soldier with red, blue, and white stars and stripes armor, and weapons including a sword and a more fantasy-like shield. Now, to be clear, this is just regular 616 Captain America, but magically time displaced, so he's got all of his same abilities, but something about wearing a suit of armor and wielding a sword like that makes him just kind of better than himself? In my opinion, I don't know. Number 9. Hydra Cap. While this version of Captain America did appear largely in the 616 reality, he's actually technically from an alternate timeline created by a Hydra brainwashed Cubic who used her reality warping powers to make Captain America his ideal self. But since she was being influenced by Hydra, his ideal self was a Captain America who grew up being made loyal to Hydra. This Cap would eventually supplant the real Captain America of 616 and would organize the second superhuman civil war, as well as Chitauri invasions on the Earth. He got promoted to director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and influenced the legalization of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Act, which gave S.H.I.E.L.D. way more authority. He used this new power to basically organize a Hydra takeover of America, with Steve becoming the Hydra Supreme and bringing on the Secret Empire event. He was defeated by the proper version of Captain America, brought back by Cubic, but this Steve manipulated his way into an extremely high position of power, banishing mutants, imprisoning Inhumans, creating a Hydra Avengers team, and forcing other heroes into the underground. Number 8. Peggy Carter. If you've seen the Marvel Studios What If show, you know alternate versions of Peggy Carter get the super soldier serum in place of Steven Rogers. Fans love this idea, even if it's strange for a British agent to become Captain America. There are a few different versions of Captain Carter to choose from, but they all generally share the same abilities. There was a version of the character who appeared in Exiles number 3 in 2018 who had a great costume. The one in the Disney Plus show joined the Guardians of the Multiverse, so she was clearly an exceptional version of the character. She's also shown up in a new Marvel Cinematic Universe movie sporting a jetpack, and was able to give the villain of that movie a real good run for their money, while other more powerful characters were felled instantly. She can be a bit more hot-headed than her Steve Rogers counterpart, sure, but she has the power of fan love, and if you know anything about what that power can do, you know that Peggy Carter as Captain America is very powerful. Number 7. Rogers. Coming back at you with Marvel 1602 yet again, we have a Captain America who initially came from Earth 460. And on this Earth, Purple Man had become president for life, and Captain America was one of the last heroes resisting him, like we'd expect. Purple Man wasn't able to end this Steve Rogers, so instead, he was sent back to the 1600s. Steve now found himself in Virginia, and he aligned himself with a Native American tribe, assimilating himself into their way of life. Steve taught them what he knew about his present time, his language, and, most importantly, the near annihilation of the Native American peoples. His arrival and discovery at this time caused alternate versions of other heroes to start appearing in this now alternate timeline. But it also caused reality to start breaking just a wee little bit. He went by the name Rogers and kept his origins a secret, being mistaken by the English to be descended from Welsh explorers who reached America before Christopher Columbus. He did not reveal himself until much later, when he would be sent back to his time. I love the 1602 story, and I think what Steve becomes falls right in line with his character. He helped the Native Americans to be aware of what the Europeans would do, and he even saved the colonists of Roanoke and became the protector of Virginia Dare. I promise this story is worth a read, just do it. Number 6. Cap Wolf. In the 616 reality, in Captain America Volume 1, number 405 from 1992, Captain America is injected with a serum by Dr. Nightshade that gives him the curse of the werewolf, giving us Cap Wolf. Now, while he ultimately recovers from the curse, in the reality of Earth 666, everyone is some kind of monster version of themselves, so obviously, this version of Cap Wolf never recovered from the curse and remained a werewolf, becoming a core member of the Undead Avengers. It's a super soldier werewolf. I'm not too sure what the rules on his power levels would be exactly, but I know he's gotta be more powerful than a regular Captain America, for sure. Maybe a little bit more feral with less of a tactician's thinking, but he's covered in fur, got crazy sharp claws, and I'm sure his bite is worse than his bark. God, I'm sorry, that was a bad joke. Number 5, it's Venom Cap. With a whole Spider-Verse event, I think it was a genius move for Marvel to create a Venomverse event as well. All the reason I would need is just seeing a whole slew of characters who are Venomized. One of the most prominent would be the leader of the Resistance, a Venom-bonded version of Captain America, who first appeared in the Edge of Venomverse #1 when he started recruiting alternate versions of Venomized heroes, starting with the Venom X-23. And let me just say, this Captain America looks awesome. All black, obviously, with white accents. His shield can extend out from his body thanks to the Venom tendrils, but then the Resistance gets attacked by a poisoned out Hulk, and then Cap and a whole bunch of Venom heroes become poisons as well, and they look dope as heck. But still, I'll take the black and white Venom versions over the poison versions any day. Number 4, Bruce Banner. This is a kind of a blink and you miss it moment, which doesn't really make sense for a comic book, but basically in Spider-Man Magazine number 4, we get a little story that shows us a Bruce Banner Hulk who seems to have acquired a Hulk-sized Captain America suit, and he also seems to have Wolverine's adamantium claws, and I'm assuming his adamantium skeleton too. He defends the Daily Bagel against Doc Ock and Magneto. But it seems to be a Hulk who has the wherewithal to become this world's Captain America, but he went through the adamantium bonding process that produced Wolverine? That's utterly insane, and I'm not complaining at all. Just wondering when I'm gonna get to see this again, if ever. Please let it happen. I can only assume he's incredibly powerful, but since we don't get to see much of it, this is where I'm gonna put him. Okay? Okay. Number 3, Mutant X. The Captain America of Earth 1298, first appearing in Mutant X number 15 in 1999, was a mutant with no name who took on the role after Steve Rogers was brought to an end by a Sentinel attack. His past was unknown, except for the fact that he was experimented on by the government due to having latent mutanacy. This captain wasn't exactly stable. He lacked control over his mutant powers, which resulted in him accidentally ending the lives of both the Six and most, if not all, of the Avengers. What were his powers though? This Cap was still given the Super Soldier Serum, which I'm assuming gave him all the same powers as Steve Rogers, but his mutant abilities included the ability to increase his mass and strength, telepathy, force field generation, crazy energy-based powers, and near invulnerability. His abilities activating caused enough of a galactical upset that it woke the Beyonder, who was sleeping inside the planet's core. So yeah, he went rampaging and was a total psychological mess, but that doesn't change the fact that he was absolutely very powerful. Number 2, Major Gamma. The thing I love about comic books, and I've mentioned this already in this video, is that they will come up with just the wildest reasons to give us amazing things we all want. So for example, in the 3rd issue of Tarot, a story from 2020, a set of magical tarot cards representing each of the heroes gets cut in half by Valkyrie and shuffled by the villain Diablo. The cards come back together, and as a result, we get amalgamated heroes. Now 2 of these new heroes are a mix of Captain America and the Incredible Hulk called Major Gamma, and a mix of Captain America and the Silver Surfer named Captain Cosmos. It's kind of hard to pick which of these characters would be more powerful. I'd assume Captain Cosmos, but since you've got a Hulk Cap, which I've definitely always wanted more of, I'm gonna stick with him. Yeah. Yes, I have included 2 very different Hulk Captain Americas, but are you really complaining? Because I'm not. And number 1, we got 2099 Captain America. We've had 3099 Cap already, but he isn't really much compared to this one. First appearing in 2099 Manifest Destiny, this Captain America was frozen again after a war happened that ended the heroic age in his timeline. He was brought to Alchemax, and after being thawed out, he told Miguel O'Hara all about it. But how is he powerful? Well, this Captain America was eventually given Thor's hammer Mjolnir to symbolize the beginning of a new world. That's right, an official Thor cap. Alongside Miguel O'Hara, Captain America assembled the various 2099 heroes into a new team of Avengers and led them into a battle in space. Yes, he looks like a very 90s amalgamation of these 2 characters, but his power was nothing to scoff at. Neither was the inspiration he fired up in people's hearts. Definitely a fantastically powerful version of Captain America. Alright, number 10 is the Captain America of 3099. Although this version of Captain America is not native to any comic books, he is still probably one of the sweetest looking Captain Americas we have ever seen. He is James Rogers, presumably an ancestor of Steve Rogers, and he wields a shield that seems to be made of pure energy that can do multiple different things. It's seen to be able to be thrown and can even turn into a much larger shield that even creates a force field bubble around James. It seems to also be able to duplicate and become multiple shields, giving James protection while other shields are bouncing around enemies. The story reason for his existence is that in a fight between an Ultron under the control of Red Skull and Captain America, Iron Man, and Black Widow, a portal to an alternate dimension opened up, and the alternate 3099 versions of those heroes came through and fought the main ones. I don't care what the excuse is, to be honest. All the versions of these 3099 heroes are sweet. Alright, number 9, Miles Morales Cap. If you haven't checked out the What If Miles Morales stories, please do yourself the favor. It may not make much sense as to why Miles ends up in the situations he does, but he becomes Wolverine, Hulk, Thor, and, of course, Captain America. In the very first issue, Miles' dad is part of the new super soldier program inspired by the original. Uncle Aaron, who always plays a large part in Miles' life, steals the super soldier serum and keeps it in his fridge, which is where Miles finds it while he's looking for a drink. Turns out Miles is a perfect match for the super soldier serum and he becomes the new Captain America. It's so cool, because not only is Miles the new Cap, but Tiana Toombs becomes the Falcon, and Sam Wilson becomes the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D., like with the eye patch and everything. Uncle Aaron becomes Prowler after being attacked by Black Widow, and Lonnie Lincoln is the Grey Skull, which is this reality's Red Skull. He seems to be just as powerful as the normal Captain America, if not a little younger and by extension a little more naive. But he's still cool, so. Number 8, Gladiator Cap. Thank the Marvel gods for creating Battleworld. This great amalgamated world gave us tons of different alternate characters and cool little side stories, one of which was Planet Hulk. Captain America and Bucky Barnes fought in a war between the realm of Apocalypse and Greenland, which is a realm inhabited by Hulks, but they were captured and forced to fight in the Colosseum alongside Devil Dinosaur on the outskirts of Doomstat. At some point, Bucky seemed to be captured by the Red King of Greenland, and the Captain and Devil Dinosaur are sent by God King Doom and his warden Strange to take out the Red King and destabilize Greenland in exchange for also saving Bucky. Now, that's all the premise I really need to see this amazing story and this awesome Captain America variant. He's defeated a group called the Wolverine Clan, he's got long hair, he's battle scarred, he wields a battle axe alongside his tattered patchwork shield, he's a gladiator, and he fights alongside a giant red T-Rex. I mean... Number 7, MCU Captain America. I find it hard to be able to put most of the MCU iterations of characters into a list of most powerful versions of themselves. The MCU tends to depower a lot of their characters, which I suppose is understandable from like a storytelling perspective. But when this version of Cap wields Mjolnir and smacks around Thanos for a little while, nearly beating him all on his own, a feat the Hulk could not even achieve, and then fights the army Thanos brought with him, all with minimal training wielding the power of Thor, it's honestly a sight to behold. I almost wish they showed us Cap going through time fixing all the branched timelines the Avengers had created. It would have been so cool seeing the ways he could use the hammer. Like, imagine Captain America flying through the air with his shield in one hand and being dragged by Mjolnir in the other. It would just be really cool. Number 6. Danielle Cage. On Earth 15061, Danielle Cage, the daughter of both Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, would eventually become the Captain America of her time. And, well, let's just think about this for a second. The subsonic flight and superhuman longevity of her mother with the bulletproof skin of her father, plus the superhuman strength, durability, stamina, speed, and healing factor of both of them? Yes, Danielle Cage doesn't just use the shield of Captain America. She is the shield. She arguably does not even need her shield, which is a controllable drone replica of the original. Unfortunately, we don't get to see much of this version of Danielle Cage, but we know Danielle is a force to be reckoned with, and as such, she is a Captain America who deserves to be on this list. Number 5. Earth X. If you haven't read Earth X, well, do it. But the basic premise is that in this alternate reality, the people of the Earth all begin to gain mutant abilities. And in the words of Syndrome from The Incredibles, and when everyone's super, no one will be. Captain America specifically was a bit more tragic in this story. For starters, he felt unworthy, as he had actually separated the Red Skull from his head using his shield in an act of vengeance, causing him to step down from the Avengers out of shame. But this likely led to all the Avengers except Vision being defeated by Absorbing Man. So this Cap was a faded version of what he could have been, but he still had all the same powers and abilities and still fought against what was wrong and stood for what was right. But it's when he passed on that he actually became more powerful. Cap turned into one of Marvel's avenging hosts, which were basically angels in the realm of the dead. His wings enabled him to fly. He could change his shape, but usually looked like himself. He was able to travel between the dimensions of the land of the dead to paradise, and from paradise to the antimatter sun of the negative zone. On top of that, Cap could also awaken the latent memories of those in the realm of the dead with a single touch. He also wielded an extremely cool sword, but we don't know what its capabilities really are because he never used it. He is a much different Captain America with an extremely unique set of powers and abilities, but he's also one of the coolest. Number 4. Kiyoshi Morales. When a group of 5 Captain Americas from different realities are brought together, we get a look at 2 who have not been seen before. But the one I want to talk about here is Kiyoshi Morales, the great grandnephew of Luke Cage, and he is the 25th century's Commander A. Kiyoshi is a much more physically imposing character, standing at what looks like almost 7 feet tall, and he was definitely the biggest among the Captain Americas gathered by Toth Key in Captain America Corps number 1 from 2011. Instead of a vibranium shield, Kiyoshi's suit can generate energy shields on each arm, which resemble the normal Captain America vibranium shield. His suit is much more advanced as well, as you'd expect from the 25th century Captain America stand-in. For example, it features a neuro web, which allows him to tap into the wireless systems and stored information of the world. He had all the enhancements we'd expect, and he is just a super cool character who I really hope we get to see in the future. But for now, he is definitely my favorite of the members of the Captain America Corps. Number 3. Ultimate Universe. In the Ultimate Universe, it seems that Captain America's treatment with the Super Soldier Serum actually seemed to give him a bit more of an edge in terms of his powers. For example, while this universe's Hulk is a bit weaker than the 616 version, he is still incredibly strong. But this Captain America was able to go toe-to-toe for a few rounds against the Hulk, almost actually defeating him and eventually knocking him out, which is like 616 Cap could never do that. Ultimate Cap also seemed pretty capable of handling armies of guys all on his own. He was an extremely capable leader while also being a bit more than a little ruthless compared to his 616 counterpart. Like when he was fighting against the Chitauri Herr Kleiser, his rival. He resorted to traumatizing Bruce Banner to get him to turn into the Hulk, and then convincing him that Kleiser was getting it on with Betty Ross, so that Hulk would pummel Kleiser into the concrete and then eat him. That kind of wholesome stuff. Nice. Number 2. Soldier Supreme. A cap-wielding Mjolnir? Cool. But how about a Cap with the mystical and magical powers of the Sorcerer Supreme? Well, we get that in Infinity Warps, when Gamora, wielding the Infinity Gauntlet, basically folds reality in half, merging characters with other characters. One of the two merged together, in case you didn't catch on, is Captain America Steve Rogers and the Sorcerer Supreme, Dr. Stephen Strange. The result would be Stephen, with a PH, Rogers, the Soldier Supreme. He fought in World War II against the German Hell Priest Dormammu Red, and would use his super enhancements and military training alongside his mystical and magical abilities. During World War II, he teamed up with his Howling Commandos of Hoggoth, including Dum Dum Fury and Bucky Wong. Later, in the modern era, after returning from banishment in the Negative Zone, he would team up with Iron Hammer, Arachnite, and Weapon Hex to battle against Devondra. Number 1. Super Soldier. Seems like when you take one character and smush them together with another character, you get a pretty OP new character, like Soldier Supreme, or Cap-wielding Mjolnir, or even Danielle Cage to a degree. But what if you took Captain America and you fused him together with one of the strongest characters in all of comic books? Well, in the Amalgam universe, where Marvel characters are mixed in with DC Comics characters, we got Super Soldier. And if you haven't guessed by now, this is Captain America mixed together with Superman. When Clark Kent volunteered for the Super Soldier program, he was injected with a Super Soldier Serum containing cellular kryptonite samples from an alien, while also being doused in solar radiation. The result was a power set unheard of for any other Captain America. Super strength over 1 million tons. Invulnerability to everything but green K, as it's called. Superhuman stamina to the point of being completely tireless. He can fly at speeds of around Mach 10. He has superhuman speed at speeds of about 2,000 miles per second. He can hear and smell anything on Earth. He has a sonic scream that allows Clark to destroy someone's literal essence. No need to eat or sleep. He can heal instantly from most any injury due to his altered metabolism. Clark can create hurricane-level winds by blowing and can also chill his breath to project ice from his mouth. And he has extremely hot heat vision. I think that pretty much covers it, and I don't really need to say more. But you take all that and put it in the mind of an expert tactician and soldier, it's game over for you, buddy. Sorry. Coming in at number 10 is Yeoman America. Back in Avengers Volume 3, number 2 in January of 1998, Morgan Le Fay's reality distortion wave caused the time period to be altered to a medieval setting, which also altered the Avengers' clothing, speech patterns, and thought processes. For Steve Rogers, he became Yeoman America, so he basically became like a knight-like soldier with stars and stripes armor, a sword, and a more fantasy-like shield. There's nothing particularly fancy about this armor, no crazy upgrade or anything, it's just so fun. So fun to see Avengers in different time periods, and as Morgan's new elite guard, the Queen's Vengeance, all these time-displaced Avengers look super cool and unique, but none caught me off guard like Captain America did. Number 9. Hydra Cap. While this version of Captain America did appear largely in the 616 reality, he is actually technically from an alternate timeline created by a Hydra brainwashed Cubic who used her reality warping powers to make Captain America his, quote, ideal self. The problem is, since Cubic was being influenced by Hydra at the time, she created a Captain America who grew up being made loyal to Hydra. That was her version of his ideal self. He is basically a sleeper agent in S.H.I.E.L.D. under the control of Hydra, who eventually spring their trap. This Cap would eventually supplant the real Captain America of 616 and would organize what was essentially another civil war, as well as Chitauri invasions of the Earth. He got promoted to director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and influenced the legislation of the S.H.I.E.L.D. Act, which gave S.H.I.E.L.D. way more authority. The story was fun for me, but it was this Captain America's armor that was the real star of the show. For the most part, Steve kept the red, white, and blue of his classic look, until further near the end of the story, he started to wear this green and yellow supersuit of armor, created by Arnim Zola using the majority of the fragments of the Cosmic Cube mixed with Tony Stark's tech to create the Hydra Supreme suit, and it's tasty. Is that a weird thing to say? Number 8. American Civil War. In What If Captain America number 1, Captain America first actually appeared in 1863 as a member of the Union in the American Civil War. This version of the Cap didn't actually receive his enhancements from a super soldier serum like he does in the mainline continuity, because scientifically, that makes no sense. Instead, after being mortally wounded by an encounter with an exceedingly evil and very racist version of Bucky Barnes, he is reborn by a version of Sam Wilson who was taken in by the Shawnee, who conjures an ancient eagle spirit that makes both Rogers and Bucky Barnes, quote, the same on the outside as they are on the inside. And you're right, that isn't any more scientifically possible, but it's fun! His suit that he wore was more Civil War era appropriate, wearing a coat, pants, and boots of the Union. However, his classic helmet was replaced by more of a headdress with a shield made of unknown bulletproof material. Now, this version of Captain America could actually summon a spirit eagle that would fight on his behalf. The uniform was supposed to represent unity of all peoples in America, which is what this Captain America fought for, and what he normally stands for all the time, usually. Unless he's from the Ultimate Universe, because then he hates French people. Coming in at number 7, it's Ellie Rogers. The daughter of Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter, Ellie Rogers is a member of the Resistance in the really cool Secret Wars story of Hail Hydra from 2015. In the second issue, she meets up with Ian Rogers, Nomad, and after the Resistance is attacked by Venom, she gets infused with a Venom symbiote, gaining similar powers to those of Eddie Brock. Before this point though, she seems to just be a very healthy, regular person, even despite her father's super soldier status. She had given up on the dream of the Resistance after such a long time under the control of Hydra, but her brother, Nomad, inspired her to keep up the fight, and they got in a wee kerfuffle with the Hydra Avengers. She was taken out by her injuries. Number 6. James Rogers. With most of the heroes killed during a battle with Ultron and the world at the mercy of the villain's army, Captain America tells Iron Man to take the children of the Avengers to a base in the Arctic Circle to keep them safe. Here, Tony trains the kids for over 12 years until they become the new young Avengers. Among these children is the son of Captain America and Black Widow, James Rogers. As the son of 2 super soldiers, James possesses all the benefits of the super soldier serum: peak human strength, speed, durability, agility, stamina, and reflexes. He also becomes the natural leader of the group of young Avengers and has a natural gift for tactics and planning. So much so that it helped the team to defeat Ultron with the help of the Hulk. Number 5. Ultimate Red Skull. In the Ultimate Universe, Steve Rogers and girlfriend at the time, Gail Richards, end up having a little one-night get-together in 1945 before he went and got himself popsicled. 9 months later, out popped a baby that the government decided needed to be kept a secret. They took the boy into foster care on a military base, training him to become a super soldier to replace the supposedly deceased Captain America. He soon became stronger and more tactically skillful than his father, and by all intents and purposes, seemed like the perfect compliant soldier. But to our surprise, Rogers' son had been carefully planning his escape and was biding his time. Fast forward to 1963, when he was finally at the age of 17, the son went on a spree, de-lifing all the doctors and soldiers at his facility. He also used the kitchen knife to carve the skin from his head, literally becoming the bloody Red Skull. In rebellion against the system that created him, Red Skull was the one who planned President John F. Kennedy's send-off to the grave. He becomes an assassin and tries to eventually steal Reed Richards' plans for the Cosmic Cube in order to use it to change history so he could grow up with his father. And now I'm really sad and this sucks. Number 4. Virginia Dare. I'm openly going to be cheating for this point. You'll have to forgive me because I ain't going back now. While Virginia Dare is not at all in any shape or form the daughter of Steve Rogers, on Earth 311, the Earth of Marvel 1602, she is the first child born in the Americas, aka the New World, and the time-displaced Rogers takes her under his wing in a way. Virginia has the ability to transform into any animal she wants, which is arguably a very powerful as well as versatile power. Rogers accompanies her across the ocean and to visit the Queen of England. He is her protector and he confides in her about his true origins, so they share a bond that's maybe a bit more comparable to a brother and a sister. But as he is inspired by the core values that he believes symbolize America, and she's the first child of America, his will to protect and guide her is strong enough that I think she deserves a spot here. Number 3. Sharon Rogers. This offspring of Captain America actually comes from Marvel Future Fight, therefore making it a little difficult to judge her level of power. But as for her backstory, well, in an alternate universe where Captain America was never frozen in ice at the end of World War II, Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter celebrated V-Day with a private marriage ceremony. In not too much time at all after the couple's honeymoon, when Peggy was assigned to South Korea, the couple welcomed the birth of their daughter, Sharon. Following in her heroic parents' footsteps, Sharon soon became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. herself and eventually took over the role of Captain America. Tony Stark presented her with an awesome-looking, heavy-duty but lightweight Starlight armor, alongside a new energy-absorbing shield and a new weapon, the Blaster Lance. She looks wild and totally awesome, and I'm assuming is on par with her father ability-wise, but with the obvious technological equipment. Number 2. Ian Rogers. An adopted test tube baby created by Arnim Zola in Dimension Z, Ian Rogers, or Nomad, was taken by Steve Rogers and was raised for 10 years by him in Dimension Z until he was thought to be accidentally taken out by Sharon Carter. But he actually lived and was raised further by Sharon while Steve was back in the real world. Being trained by Cap, Ian was exceedingly useful in combat and even with using a shield like his father's. But he was also born with above peak human levels of physical and mental abilities, like enhanced strength, speed, intellect, and longevity, as well as accelerated healing thanks to the biogel Zola made him with. As long as he has a supply of the gel within his armor, his body will always fix itself. And that's pretty cool. He had a really awesome leading part in the Secret Wars story Hail Hydra from 2015. He once wielded the shield of Cap but now uses the Horde Crusher, which is a big old staff made by Arnim Zola. He's awesome. Check him out. And number 1. Sarah Rogers. In What If number 114 from September of 1998, we get a story of what would happen if the heroes who were transported to Battleworld in Secret Wars actually just stayed there. And well, they make babies. Sarah Rogers was the daughter of Steve Rogers, Captain America, and the X-Man Rogue. Now, Rogue's body has actually been taken over by Carol Danvers in this story, who gained enough control over Rogue's powers for Sarah to actually exist, because, you know, Rogue can't do the whole physical touch thing. Her powers are pretty basic, with superhuman strength and durability, as well as the power of flight, but she permanently borrows the shield of her father, and it turns out she's actually worthy of wielding the hammer of Thor. It's great. During a fight with the son of Dr. Doom, who is trying to return to Earth and conquer it, Sarah, like most of these descended from the Captain, becomes a natural leader and helps inspire the other teen heroes. She is very powerful and she is very cool. Number 10. MCU kids. What? That's right. Thanks to the writers of Endgame, we know for certain that Captain America has 2 kids with none other than Peggy Carter. At the end of Endgame, Captain America decided to retire to the past and marry Peggy Carter, who he had been separated from for decades thanks to his years spent in the ice before being revived during the events of the first Avengers film. Peggy's husband was first referenced in the 2014 sequel to the first Captain America film, Captain America the Winter Soldier, in which an older Peggy mentions that she got married after the war and had 2 children. We now know that that husband actually was Steve himself, who had gone back in time, and those 2 mysterious children belonged to him. This kind of leaves us wondering, where were Captain America's super kids this whole time, and will they play a part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in years to come? This has yet to be seen, but they will almost definitely play a part in the future of the MCU. Number 9. Jack Rogers. Jackson Jack Rogers is from the alternate future world of Earth TRN-858 and is Steve Rogers' great-great-grandson. He lives in a utopian society where the super soldier serum is used by hospitals to cure patients. The only problem is that for Jack's son, Steve, his body is rejecting the serum and having a negative effect. He goes to the president and asks for the secrets to the serum, but a Kree general rejects him. Turns out the Kree are actually using the serum to turn humans into a sleeper army. So once Jackson finds that out, a whole manhunt begins, and he ends up allying, sorta, with the Red Skull and using his ancestor's shield to fight against the Kree. Now it turns out his son actually has a recessive Kree gene, and the serum is actually harmful to the Kree, which Rogers uses to his advantage, finding the serum and stopping the Kree invaders with a bit of help from the Cosmic Q powered Red Skull. Now it's a really cool story, but Rogers is basically just a normal guy with a great lineage. Number 8. General America. Unfortunately, we don't know much about the great-grandson of Stephen Rogers, as the story he was in, What If Captain America number 1, was mainly about the Civil War hero. But from what I can tell, he seems to have the same kind of enhancements as his previous ancestors who took up the Captain America mantle. They were all blessed with an ancient power that gave them peak human conditioning and also, presumably, mystical protection from harm. Another point that I think just makes them a cut above is their constant battle with the white supremacist group known as the White Skulls. He himself is descended from the great Civil War era Captain America who fought the White Skull, saved President Lincoln and the Native American peoples, and even helped end the Civil War earlier than it normally would have. The Captain Americas are a lineage that will continue on as long as there is injustice to fight. Number 7. Secret Avengers. Now what we have here is a much more subtle Captain America suit, but it is both my favorite and Chris Evans' favorite. The real Captain America, so I think it deserves to be here. When Steve Rogers became Commander Rogers of the Secret Avengers following the superhuman Civil War, he adopted a new suit design. It's actually very similar to and was the inspiration for the MCU Captain America Winter Soldier suit. The suit itself is more subtle, like I said, featuring a dark blue color scheme with a simple silver star and like stripes design. It reflects the serious darker tone of both the Secret Avengers stories in the comics and of that MCU movie. In the movie though, it is referred to as the stealth suit and offers more maneuverability and a more Kevlar armored design. Most importantly, it's a suit that allows Steve to step out of the role of Captain America, always doing what is expected, and instead act as himself, detached from his persona, and to make the tough calls. Number 6. Gladiator Cap. In the battle world, in Secret Wars, there are many lands that hold mystery and enchantment, but none as much or with as much savageness as Greenland. First appearing in Planet Hulk #1, this version of Captain America is a fighter in the battle world Colosseum on the outskirts of Doomstat, and he fights alongside a giant red T-Rex named Devil. Yes, it's a version of Devil Dinosaur, which is as awesome as it sounds, and as it looks, because it looks awesome. That just right there is enough to sell me on this comic book, but this version of Cap wields a battle axe alongside a shield that I'm assuming is not vibranium, but it also takes a beating, so who knows. He also wears battle armor in true gladiator fashion, with long blonde hair and no helmet. He is sent by God Emperor Doom and Sheriff Strange to go into Greenland, which is basically inhabited by Hulks everywhere, with his mission being to eliminate the Red King. It's Gladiator Steve Rogers with a battle-bound T-Rex. You don't really have to ask any questions here, just go and check it out. Number 5, Sam Wilson MCU Captain America. At the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, fans were given the absolute treat of seeing Sam Wilson's debut as Captain America. Now, before wielding the shield, we all recognized Falcon as a hero by himself. However, his outfit here, which was ripped almost completely from his comic book counterpart, mixes his winged suit with a new and improved and armored Captain America suit, which had fans in a frenzy when it was revealed. In true MCU fashion, the new Captain America made one hell of a badass first appearance that left us salivating for more. From what we have seen of on-set photos though, it appears Marvel has changed Sam Wilson's suit somewhat going forward. I hope not too much though, because his new Captain America suit had such an impact. Did you like the suit? Let me know down below. Number 4, Peggy Carter. We all know who Peggy Carter is thanks to the MCU, and if you've seen the What If show, or now Multiverse of Madness, you know alternate versions of her get the Super Soldier Serum in place of Steve Rogers. Logically, this would make her a Captain Britain, which she is one of them as well, but a version of her appearing in Exiles #3 in 2018 decided to become Captain America instead. And honestly, I like her Captain America costume a lot, and it was the inspiration for what her big screen counterparts don. I think there is a lot to this look that works really well, but I think above all of that, all it really took to achieve such an iconic look was very simply giving her a collared shirt and a tie underneath her armored and tactical looking Captain America suit. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's more spy and espionage vibes. It's subtle, but to me, it's perfect. Just saying. Number 3, Captain Avalon. We already looked at a medieval version of Captain America, yes, but if we shift focus to another reality, there is another. And just like Yeoman America, this one also changes the captain's name. In Avatar's Covenant of the Shield, Steve Rogers is now Stevan, or Saint Van, or Stevan. Look, if you don't want to struggle to say it, he also goes by Captain Avalon, which is way easier. Captain Avalon belongs to a group known as the Champions of the Realm. They're basically this world's version of the Avengers, and Avalon is their leader. Fun little fact for you, Captain Avalon recently made an appearance in the sequel to LEGO Marvel Superheroes, like the video game, but under a somewhat different context. In the actual comics, Stevan's son is stolen away by Dreadlord, who is essentially this world's Baron Zemo, and this prompts a reassembling of the Avengers, aka the Champions of the Realm. The interesting thing to note here is that this was actually set in Earth 616, just in a different planet created by the Living Tribunal and his fellow cosmic entities. But you know what's cooler than even that? This suit of armor. It's awesome. Number 2, Captain Colonies. Here's an interesting question for you. What would Captain America call himself if America never came to be? Well, funnily enough, in the great multitude of the universes in the Marvel landscape, there is indeed such a place and such a captain, who instead goes by Captain Colonies. Yes, it does feel kind of weird, but that's what this version of Steven Rogers becomes on Earth 4103. What sets him more apart though from the other Captain Americas is the fact that Captain Colonies is actually a member of the Captain Britain Corps, suggesting that this Captain America is an amalgamation of Brian Braddock, aka Captain Britain, and Steven Rogers. The problem is that he has only featured sporadically in the comics, having first appeared in 1991's Excalibur #45.
1984, but so far he hasn't ever been the focus of any major story. His look isn't terribly different from Captain America's look really at all, it's just been Britishified. I think the idea of a Captain Colonies is where the unbelievability of this character comes from. There's no denying how strange a premise it actually is, and how in one version of the Marvel Universe, the Founding Fathers were just like, actually, nah, we're good. We don't need an America. Get out of here. Number 1. Soldier Supreme. There are so many Captain Americas out there that surprise us completely, but how about a Cap with the mystical and magical powers of the Sorcerer Supreme? Well, we get that in Infinity Warps when Gamora, wielding the Infinity Gauntlet, basically folds reality in half, merging characters with other characters. Now, one of the two merged together, in case you didn't catch on, is Captain America Steve Rogers and the Sorcerer Supreme Dr. Stephen Strange. The result would be Stephen with a PH, Rogers, the Soldier Supreme. He fought in World War II against the German Hell Priest Dormammu Red and would use his super enhancements and military training alongside his mystical and magical abilities. During World War II, he teamed up with his Howling Commandos of Hoggoth, including Dum Dum Fury and Bucky Wong. And later in the modern era though, after returning from banishment in the negative zone instead of being frozen, he would team up with Iron Hammer, Arachnite, and Weapon Hex to battle against Devondra. Yes, that's a lot of names. I'm sorry, but he's also very cool. Check him.
Number 10. Rogers. This alternate version of Captain America resided in Earth 311, the 1602 reality, but initially came from the dystopian future reality of Earth 460, where Purple Man, aka Kilgrave, had become president for life. As such, Purple Man had seen Captain America as one of the last remaining threats to his dictatorship, and rather than make a martyr out of him through execution, he sent him back into the past, displacing the hero. Captain America took a new identity in the reality of Earth 311, adopting the name Rogers, and used his opportunity to warn the First Nations peoples of the Americas of the risk posed to their existence by the settlers who would come. As Rogers, during his time on Earth 311, Captain America helped maintain peace between the indigenous peoples of the land and the Roanoke colony settlers. In this reality, Roanoke also never disappeared due to the fact that they had Rogers there to help them survive the harsh environment of their new home. Number 9. Iron Man. The bullet points version of Steve Rogers never became a super soldier. Instead, he joins Project Iron Man during World War II, becoming the first Iron Man in history. In order to become this new mechanical hero, he has to become surgically grafted to the suit. He would then fight during World War II and later retire but be called back into action to take on the Hulk, who in this reality was Peter Parker. As in most realities, Steve, even as Iron Man, is really no match for that hulking behemoth and ends up dying in battle against him. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more lists like it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Age of X. This version of Captain America was kind of a villain, although it wasn't entirely his fault. He was led to believe that in order to protect the world, he and his team of Avengers would have to take out and defeat all of the mutants, which included Cap hunting down not just all kinds of mutants, but all ages of mutants as well, if you pick up what I'm putting down. This Captain America mowed down tons of mutant kind with a gun, including Mystique, who was guarding mutant children. Fortunately, Mystique with her dying breath causes Captain America to question his mission and doubt that his objective is truly noble. He decides to go against orders and instead fight alongside the mutants working to protect them. Cap dies a hero, taking on the Hulk, who decides to stick with the mission, calling Steve a traitor. Once again, another reality where it's Cap versus Hulk and Hulk just destroys Cap.
Number 7. Shannon Carter. Spider-Girl, May Parker's timeline, otherwise known as Earth 982, presented a brighter future for Marvel than the world of 2099 suggested. In the MC2, Sharon Carter's cousin, Shannon Carter, idolized Captain America as she grew up. Now, as an adult, Shannon worked as a tour guide for the Avengers Mansion, but eventually she pushed herself to her physical limit, created miniature Captain America shield weapons, and she was invited to join the next generation of Avengers. Shannon took on the American Dream persona in tribute to Cap, but when she finally met and saved her idol, Steve was so impressed that he gave Shannon an indestructible shield too. So while she did have a different name, she was ultimately another version of Captain America, and an alternate future version too. She also kicked butt, so there's that. Number 6. Danielle Cage. On Earth 15061, Danielle Cage, the daughter of both Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, would eventually grow up to become the Captain America of her time. And let's think about this. The subsonic flight and superhuman longevity of her mother, with the bulletproof skin of her father, plus the superhuman strength, durability, stamina, speed, and healing factors of both of them? Yes, Danielle Cage doesn't just use the shield of Captain America, she is the shield, and she is an awesome Captain America. She arguably does not even need her shield, which is a controllable drone replica of the original. Unfortunately, we don't really get to see much of this version of Danielle Cage, but we know Danielle is a force to be reckoned with, and as such, she's a Captain America who deserves to be on this list. Number 5. Mutant X. The Captain America of Earth 1298, first appearing in Mutant X number 15 in 1999, was a mutant with no name who took on the role after Steve Rogers was brought to an end by a Sentinel attack. His past was unknown except for the fact that he was experimented on by the government due to having latent mutanacy. This captain wasn't exactly stable. He lacked control over his mutant powers, which resulted in him accidentally ending the lives of both the Six and most, if not all, of the Avengers. What were his powers though? This Cap was still given the Super Soldier Serum, which I'm assuming gave him all of the same powers as Steve Rogers, but his mutant abilities included the ability to increase his mass and strength, telepathy, force field generation, crazy energy-based powers, and near invulnerability. His abilities activating caused enough of a galactical upset that it woke the Beyonder, who was sleeping inside the planet's core. So yeah, he went rampaging and was a total psychological mess, but that doesn't change the fact that he was absolutely very powerful. Number 4. 2099 Captain America. First appearing in 2099 Manifest Destiny, this Captain America was frozen again after a war happened that ended the heroic age in his timeline. He was brought to Alchemax, and after being thawed out, he told Miguel O'Hara all about it. Now this Captain America was eventually given Thor's hammer Mjolnir to symbolize the beginning of a new world. That's right, it's an official Thor cap. Alongside Miguel O'Hara, Captain America assembled the various 29 heroes into a new team of Avengers and led them into a battle in space against the President Doom of 2099. Yes, he does look like a very 90s amalgamation of the two characters, but his power was nothing to scoff at. Neither was the inspiration he fired up in people's hearts. Definitely a fantastically powerful alternate future version of Captain America. Number 3. Another 2099 Cap. But wait, there's more! In Marvel 2099, Captain America was a female named Roberta Mendez, or this version of Captain America was. Roberta was a bit different from most other captains on this list. Instead of joining a government-sponsored research program, Roberta was forcefully given the Super Soldier Serum by her husband, Harry. She gained all the powers afforded to a super soldier, and she did indeed become a new Captain America, although she was under the control of the Alchemax Corporation, which is a massive science-based company in this future world. It kinda gets worse for Roberta, as she is actually completely unaware of her separate Captain America persona thanks to brainwashing. Luckily, she did actually eventually rebel against Alchemax and then legitimately became Captain America, taking on the ideals that made her predecessor, or predecessors, I guess, so much better. Number 2. Earth X. Captain America, in the not too distant alternate future of Earth X, was a bit more tragic. In this world, everyone was exposed to Terrigen mists, giving everyone powers and sort of denying the need for superheroes as much. On top of that, this Cap felt unworthy as he had actually separated the Red Skull from his head using his shield in an act of vengeance, causing him to step down from the Avengers out of shame. There's reason to believe this likely led to all the Avengers except Vision being defeated by Absorbing Man. So this Cap was a faded version of what he could have been, but he still had all the same powers and abilities and still fought against what was wrong and stood for what was right. He helped defeat an evil telepathic kid called the Skull and helped Mar-Vell create a paradise for deceased heroes. Although he did pass away, this Cap turned into one of Mar-Vell's avenging hosts, which were basically angels in the realm of the dead. He became an avenging angel, which is like a title I kind of hope to possess one day, but I probably won't. But his wings enabled him to fly. He could change his shape, but usually just look like his usual self. He was able to travel between the dimensions of the land of the dead to paradise, and from paradise to the antimatter sun of the negative zone. On top of that, Cap could also awaken the latent memories of those in the realm of the dead with a single touch. He also wielded this extremely cool sword, but we don't really know what its capabilities are. So, he is a much different Captain America with an extremely unique set of powers and abilities, but he's also one of the coolest. Number 1. James Newman. In 2007's Marvel Knights Captain America: The Chosen, Steve Rogers' super soldier serum wore out after all the powerful and intense wars and battles he had been involved in over his unnaturally long life. He returned to his true self and became immortal again, growing old. Now, Rogers volunteered to use an experimental machine that would let him project his image remotely onto battlefields around the world as an inspirational figure to give soldiers hope and courage. And it did just that for the central hero of this comic, James Newman. He was inspired to do incredibly heroic and courageous stuff, even if he felt like he was kind of losing himself. After Steve Rogers' actual death, Steve's spirit possessed James during an incredibly intense firefight and fought in battles for as long as his country needed him, saying that his spirit was inside anyone who needed him. This one's a bit more idealistic, but it does perfectly represent Captain America and his ideals.
Number 10. Jonathan Walker. US agent might be a hero now in the comics, but when he started out in the 616 continuity, he was manipulated into becoming a villain. Jonathan Walker was initially known as antagonistic hero Super Patriot, who did his best to discredit Captain America, claiming that he himself stood for the United States' true ideals. As a result of Red Skull's meddling and manipulation, he was appointed to replace Steve Rogers as the new Captain America after Rogers stepped down as the government actually owned the title and refused to let him keep the title if he wasn't going to be working for them. As Captain America, Walker took a very extreme and violent approach that put him into direct conflict with Rogers, who was currently going by the mantle of the Captain. In the end, the Captain defeated Walker, and after Skull's involvement in the ordeal was revealed, the two ended up teaming up to take him down, starting off on Walker's path to redemption as hero US agent. Number 9. Cap Wolf. Werewolf Captain America isn't as much an alternate version of Cap as it is a distinct moment in Cap's history where he happened to be transformed into a werewolf. Captain America ends up becoming a werewolf while on the trail of Colonel John Jameson, who had gone missing. Captain America himself had reason to suspect that something awful had happened to Jameson, who it seemed may be plagued by his wolf side once more. Jameson was known in the past for operating as Man-Wolf. It seemed as though a wolf-like creature or werewolf was responsible for a series of murders. In the end, however, Cap's trail ended up leading him into a much more complex and disturbing plot where a villain was attempting to use a recreated Werewolf by Night wolf serum to turn people into werewolves. Captain America became one of their victims and for a time became a werewolf himself. Granted, he was still a hero at this point, but werewolves in general are considered to be somewhat uncontrollable monsters who are at least occasionally ruled by their own bloodlust. So I think we can at least partially count Cap Wolf. Also, I needed to complete the monster trifecta. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Captain America lists, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. MCU US Agents. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, US Agent John Walker accidentally becomes an evil version of Captain America without really intending to do that. Really, it's more complicated than him just being straight up evil, as it is with most Marvel Cinematic Universe antagonists. Walker really wants to do right by the Captain America mantle and do it justice. He's a soldier who has worked super hard to earn this title, but also, although his heart might be in the right place, that doesn't mean that he knows the best way to approach replacing Cap or doing right by his legacy. Walker ends up becoming misguided as a result of dealing with so much disrespect from those around him, and as a result of him not being, as powerful as Cap would be because he doesn't have the super soldier serum. He realizes that being chosen and respected as the new Captain America by the government doesn't necessarily mean that the people of the United States will also respect you, nor that Steve's actual allies and friends will respect you as his replacement either. After he loses his own best friend, Lamar Hoskins, he becomes completely fed up with trying to figure out how to do what's right and instead decides to do what he feels needs to be done. This makes him much more violent and much more dangerous, turning him into an enemy of Falcon and Winter Soldier and leading the government to later on remove his title, his honors, and basically just overall dismiss him. Fortunately, the US agent still found a place on what will likely be either the MCU Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers team. TBD, or at least to be declared, if not to be determined.
In its 7th, Soldier Supreme. After acquiring the Infinity Stones, Gamora harnessed their power to trap the souls of the universe within the Soul Gem. To further subdue the inhabitants, she folded the universe in half, causing every soul to merge with another and giving rise to the Warp World, a pocket dimension where history was rewritten and adapted to accommodate the fused beings. Basically, like the Marvel vs. DC, but just with Marvel characters. Within Warp World, Doctor Strange and Captain America were combined, forming the enigmatic Soldier Supreme. In this altered reality, during the height of World War II, the meek Stephen Rogers volunteered for an experimental procedure to become a super soldier in the US Army, but unbeknownst to him, the scientist Morgan Erskine, who presented herself as the creator of the super soldier serum, actually employed a mystical ritual that granted Stephen enhanced physical abilities and access to potent sorcery. Following Erskine's ultimate demise at the hands of spies from the opposition, because you know you can't say that word, can't say the NA word, her true nature was discovered. Although disheartened by her methods, the military saw promise in Stephen's transformation and he assumed the mantle of Soldier Supreme. In its 6th, Roberta Mendez. Roberta Mendez on Earth 2329-1 was the wife of Alchemax operative 1940 and was forcibly exposed to the super soldier serum, transforming her into Captain America. Unaware of her dual identity, Roberta led Alchemax's Avengers. During an attack at her home by the Specialist, Roberta transformed into Captain America and defeated him, but couldn't prevent his self-death. The following day, Alchemax CEO Miguel Stone assigned the team to investigate Martin Hargood, suspected of hiring Specialist. They tracked Hargood to Latvian cuisine, where he argued with John Eisenhart, who revealed himself as the Hulk, and attacked the team when they refused to leave. The confrontation spilled outside, where they encountered the Hulk's allies, the Defenders. But yeah, this whole world is crazy. But yeah, there you go. That's Captain America for you. Roberta Mendez. Earth 20, just a lot of numbers. Halfway through into number 5, Captain Carter. I feel like you're all gonna know this one. Captain Margaret Elizabeth Peggy Carter was a distinguished Avenger and founding member of the Illuminati, the Marvel Illuminati YouTube, relax. Playing a crucial role in the Infinity War of 2018, she fought valiantly against Thanos and aided in his defeat during the Battle of Titan. In the aftermath, when Doctor Strange utilized the Darkhold for dreamwalking, resulting in a threat of multiversal incursion, Carter, along with the Illuminati, voted in favor of executing him to safeguard the universe. In the years that followed, Carter found herself presiding over a hearing concerning an alternate version of Doctor Strange, who was apprehended by Baron Mordo on suspicions of posing a similar danger to the reality. Before the vote could be finalized and condemn this alternate Strange to death, their headquarters was attacked by the Scarlet Witch, who ended up killing Carter with her own shield and, you know, pulled a science class and kind of just severed her torso from her legs. Yeah, very confusing considering how I'm pretty sure Cap has actually caught that multiple times, but I guess it wasn't being thrown by magic, so yeah. And at 4, Commander A. In an alternate future of Earth 1183-1, Commander A genetically enhanced version of Captain America named Kyoshi Morales, was called upon by the Contemplator alongside 4 other Captain Americas from different time periods. They were summoned because someone was erasing Captain Americas across the multiverse, a dangerous act that would unleash an entropic wave leading to the destruction of all realities. Commander A and his fellow Captain Americas were transported to the 21st century America, the time and place where the erasures were occurring, and together they confronted and fought against forces behind the erasing of Americas, facing off against the character known as Americommand, which is just lazy naming. Come on, Americommand? Dude, that's just the government. Getting close to the end into number 3, the Captain. Leaving a pineapple on his doorstep for Ted Mosby, oh wait, sorry, wrong Captain, my bad. In the midst of the Battleworld conflict, Stephen engaged in a brutal confrontation with the Wolverine clan, ultimately emerging victorious. Arcade, however, taunted Stephen, provoking his wrath. In a swift act of retaliation, Stephen trapped Arcade within the formidable jaws of the Devil Dinosaur. However, his actions attracted the attention of God Emperor Doom and Sheriff Strange, who summoned him for judgment. If you can't tell, this world is kinda nuts. Stephen pleaded on behalf of Steve, revealing that in order to secure Bucky's freedom, Steve had been tasked with venturing into the Greenland domain and assassinating the Red King. Sent on this mission, Steve encountered ferocious monsters, but was saved from their onslaught by Hulk. It's a mess, okay? Basically, I'm pretty sure this one is just, I forget what age it was. I feel like it's a dinosaur one, okay? I think it is. Just read it. if you really want to know, because I can't explain it. It's so confusing. Penultimately, in at number 2, Vamp Cap. Steven Rogers of Earth 3931 was a member of the Avengers, but became a vampire during World War II after being infected by Baron Blood. This transformation granted him new powers, and he used this newfound ability to turn his fellow heroes into enslaved minions. Gotta love America. The Exiles, a team tasked with fixing alternate realities, encountered Rogers and faced a vampirized Sunfire who had been influenced by him. One by one, the Exiles team members were killed, and Rogers himself was decapitated by Mimic using Wolverine's claws. Despite this seemingly fatal blow, Rogers miraculously survived by reattaching his head to his body. Eventually, Sunfire was cured of her vampirism and retaliated, annihilating Rogers and the remnants of his team. But yeah, Vampire Captain. Oh my god. And finally, in at number 1, Captain Americat. Not even joking. Captain America has a remarkable ability to adapt to different realities within the multiverse, even in the more eccentric corners of it. Here we go. Take for instance the Earth of Spider-Ham, where Steve Rogers is a feline counterpart known as Steve Mouser or Captain Americat. While his escapades may possess a more lighthearted and whimsical tone compared to other versions of Cap because it's a freaking Earth of animals, in this alternate universe, he fearlessly protects his world with feline grace and is still a Captain America but as a cat. But he does have catnip craving villains, which is just the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever talked about. I've talked about a turtle who has a connection to the Speed Force, but Captain America as a goddamn cat? Man, no, okay? Cats are Red Skull. It's as simple as that. Cats are always trying to kill you. So I don't know why they made him a cat, but I guess it was for the pun. Captain Ameridog doesn't really roll off the tongue as well.
Number 10, 3099. Although this version of Captain America is not native to any comic books, being from the Marvel Future Fight game, he is still probably one of the sweetest looking Captain Americas we have ever seen, and he is from the future, so a win-win. This Cap is James Rogers, presumably an ancestor of Steve Rogers, and he wields a shield that seems to be made of pure energy that can do multiple different things. By watching some of his moves from the game, James can do all the normal Captain America things, but his shield can create a force field bubble around James. It is also able to duplicate itself and become multiple shields at once to attack multiple enemies and give James protection while other shields are bouncing around doing crazy stuff. The story reason for his existence is that in a fight between an Ultron under the control of Red Skull and modern day Captain America, Iron Man, and Black Widow, a portal to an alternate future dimension opens up, and the alternate 39 future versions of those three heroes come through and they fight against their originals. I don't really care what the excuse is for having them. All the versions of these 3099 heroes are totally awesome, even if only in their designs. Number 9, Sharon Rogers. Oh look! It's another Marvel Future Fight version of Cap. I'm sorry, I promise this is the last one, I promise. In an alternate universe where Captain America was never frozen in ice at the end of World War II, Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter celebrated V-Day with a private marriage ceremony and some alone time. After the couple's honeymoon, when Peggy was assigned to South Korea, the couple welcomed the birth of their daughter Sharon. Following in her heroic parents' footsteps, Sharon soon became an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. herself and eventually took over the role of Captain America. Tony Stark presented her with awesome-looking heavy-duty but lightweight Starlight armor, alongside a new energy-absorbing shield and a new weapon, the Blaster Lance. She looks wild and totally awesome, and I'm assuming, based on her in-game stats, that she's on par with her father ability-wise, but with the obvious technological enhancements. Number 8, Kiyoshi Morales. When a group of 5 Captain Americas from different realities are brought together in Captain America Corps number 1 from 2011, we get a look at Kiyoshi Morales, the great-grandnephew of Luke Cage, and he is the 25th century's Commander A. Kiyoshi is a much more physically imposing character, standing at what looks like almost 7 feet tall, and he was definitely the most physically imposing Captain America among the Captain Americas gathered by Toph Key. Instead of a vibranium shield, Kiyoshi's suit can generate energy shields on each arm, which resemble the normal Captain America vibranium shield, kind of like Captain America 3099 from number 10. His suit is much more advanced as well, as you'd expect from the 25th century Captain America. For example, It features a neuro web, which allows him to tap into wireless systems and stored information. He had all the enhancements we'd expect from a Captain America, and he is just a super cool character who I really hope we get to see more of in the future. But for now, he's definitely my favorite of the Captain America Corps members.
Number 7. Mutant Captain America. This version of Captain America was a mutant who ended up replacing the original Captain America after he died in a Sentinel attack. He wasn't just given the mantle of Cap either, but also ended up receiving the Super Soldier Serum. He had this and his own mutant powers besides, which made him pretty crazy powerful. Although the mutant version of Cap had good intentions, his powers were somewhat uncontrollable, which was a big problem. His powers going haywire was what ended up causing the death of his own group, the Six, and the Avengers, who he was at the time fighting against. This caused him to lose his sanity, turning him into a full-on villain and a loose cannon, who attacked and defeated pretty much everyone who came after him, except Havoc, who managed to successfully kill and defeat the crazed mutant version of Captain America. Poor mutant Captain America, it sounds like it was a rough go, you know? Number 6. Zombie Colonel America. What's worse than a werewolf Cap? A zombie Cap, obviously. This is the version of Captain America that we get in the Marvel Zombieverse. Although really, this isn't Captain America as a zombie, it's Colonel America, because that is Steve Rogers' hero mantle in this reality. Here, Colonel America was infected and turned into a zombie during that first confrontation with the zombified Sentry, which the Avengers responded to in downtown New York. Zombie Cap was responsible for turning Spider-Man into a zombie, biting him after he himself was infected. He was one of the zombies to fight against the villains for who should get the remains of Galactus' corpse, and of course with it the power Cosmic, which would enable them to travel to other worlds, which they then could devour. However, Zombie Cap was defeated by his nemesis, a zombified Red Skull. So, no power Cosmic for him. He dead. He's double dead. Really. Number 5. William Burnside. William Burnside was the Captain America of the 1950s, who ended up being retconned to not actually be Steve Rogers at all, although he was a man who believed he was Steve Rogers. This version of Captain America was later revealed to be William Burnside initially, a man who was hired to replace Captain America after he went missing in World War II. This version of Captain America was racist and extremely anti-communist, echoing the McCarthy communist witch hunts of those times. Burnside legally changed his name to Steven Rogers and would have an extended lifespan thanks to a version of the Super Soldier Serum that he was exposed to. However, because this was not a perfected version of the serum, it apparently would also cause him to become more extreme over time as his psyche and mind degraded as a result, so made him pretty crazy and pretty evil. Number 4. Evil Clone. An evil clone with the mind of Red Skull. To be honest, this has happened multiple times in the comics, where Red Skull has ended up having his consciousness, his personality, or his memories, or some combination of those, into the clone of Steve Rogers. It's happened both in the main continuity and in alternate universes. For this version though, we're going to be talking about issue 350 of Captain America, where the Red Skull in Steven Rogers' clone body ends up being the mastermind behind the whole commission/Walker kerfuffle that we talked about earlier on this list. His plan this time around in a Steve Rogers' clone body is to discard his previous ideologies and use capitalism itself to dismantle the democracy of America and destroy the nation from the inside out. It doesn't work out in the end, and the issue ends with him facing off against both John Walker and the Captain and becoming deformed once more by the red dust of death. But he did try it. He did try. And don't worry, he would come back in more clone bodies. That's how he do. Number 3. Vampire King. This version of Captain America comes from the Exile series, where he becomes King of the Vampires. In the alternate reality of Earth 3931 during World War II by Baron Blood. Baron Blood turns him into a vampire. Vampire Cap is definitely not a good dude. Likely the most evil of all the monstrous Captain Americas listed here, this version of Captain America has his own sinister version of the Avengers and Thralls, who he enlists and forces to fight for him. However, he still proves to be no match for the Exiles, who end up defeating and decapitating him in the end. Number 2. President Red Skull. Not an alternate version of Steve Rogers, but an alternate version of Red Skull who beat Rogers and took to wearing his Captain America suit off and around his new redecorated Oval Office. This alternate version of Red Skull comes from the Old Man Logan universe, where Red Skull ends up appointing himself the new president of the US, which he renames America. America with a K. Red Skull ends up not just defeating Captain America, but also almost all of the superhero community when he manages to rally together an impossible to defeat force of supervillains who coordinate their attack on the nation. Being that he's Red Skull, he's probably one of the most evil versions of Captain America out there because he's Red Skull, although like I said, he's not fully a Cap alt really, but he definitely evil, so. And he does wear that suit a lot. Number 1. Hydra Supreme. This alternate version of Captain America was initially retconned to be the version of Captain America. Steve Rogers ended up being revealed as a Hydra sleeper agent in one of the biggest twists in comic book history. All his heroic actions had apparently just been Steve buying time and building trust so that he'd be in the perfect position to take over the US and could then reveal his true colors. Hail Hydra to this day is one of the most iconic lines ever uttered by the supposed hero. However, it all turned out that this version of Cap wasn't the real Steve Rogers of 616. Instead, what happened was Kobik, the sentient living version of the Cosmic Cube, was convinced by Red Skull that reality should be warped so that Cap could become an agent of Hydra. When this happened, the real heroic version of Captain America ended up trapped within a shard of the Cosmic Cube, and the now altered version of the character took his place in the reality of 616. In the end, the true Cap would be freed from the shard and would end up fighting and defeating his evil Hydra Supreme alternate version. And if you're worried, don't worry, the shard was made bigger, so it wasn't like little tiny Cap running around.
And at 10, Ian Rogers. When Steve Rogers got trapped in Dimension Z, he rescued a baby boy while he was trapped there. Since time moves faster in Dimension Z, he ended up raising that boy for over 10 years. Sharon Carter ended up raising him for the remainder of his childhood when she got trapped in Dimension Z after going there to rescue Steve, but the boy was the son of Armin Zola, but saw Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter as his parents. His birth name was Leopold Zola, but he goes by Ian Rogers, the true name that his father gave him. By the time he left Dimension Z, he was a full-grown adult. Then he took on the name Nomad and partnered with Sam Rogers, but he does at one point become Captain America as well, I think. And even if he doesn't, he's basically gay. He's like Cap's adoptive son, so you know what? It's like Patriot adjacent. And at 9, Super Soldier. Super Soldier is fairly evidently, well I say evidently, but I guess you wouldn't really know that, it's actually a combination of Clark Kent and Steve Rogers. First being introduced in Marvel vs. DC number 3 from 1996, during World War II, government scientists were working on a super soldier formula that would transform a man into much more, into some sort of human weapon using cellular samples of an alien corpse. Clark Kent volunteers for the super soldier program and they administer the formula, as well as a good chunk of solar radiation. This mixture gave Clark Kent incredible abilities, including all those of Captain America and Superman. Super strength, heat vision, flight. Now known as Super Soldier, Kent wields the Superman logo as his shield. In March of 1942, Super Soldier fought Ultra Metallo, a robot sent by Lex Luthor to aid Germany in winning the war by killing Clark, but the fight started in Washington, D.C. and ended above the northern Atlantic Ocean, when Clark sacrificed himself to take down the robot, sinking them both into the icy depths. Jimmy Olsen was one of the few witnesses of this event and instead reported that Super Soldier had retired after America had declared that the war was won. 50 years later, the body was thought out in JLA number 4, that stands for Judgment League Avengers, and Clark joined the Judgment League Avengers as its leader. And at 8, Zombie Cap. Colonel America's life before the onslaught of the zombie plague of Earth 2149 remains largely undisclosed, but it is reasonable to assume that it paralleled the experience of Captain America from 616. Aside from the evident difference in rank, the only other deviation from 616 is that Colonel America assumed the role of President of the United States, akin to his ultimate counterpart. Although his presidency was cut short before completing a full term, tragically he succumbed to the zombie infection and became part of the Zombie Galacti, only to meet a gruesome fate when his brains were violently extracted by Red Skull. Here's a fun fact: such a high percentage of US presidents have been assassinated that it is considered the deadliest job in the world. Yep, Cap isn't changing that. However, his story took a an unexpected turn as he found himself transplanted into the body of T'Challa, the son of Black Panther. The circumstances surrounding this transformation and the ensuing consequences for Colonel America in his new form are yet to be fully revealed, but yeah, that's a whole load of crazy. Gotta love zombies.
Number 7. Union Soldier Stephen Rogers. What if Captain America fought in the American Civil War? Well, you can bet this is the version of the hero that we would get. Stephen Rogers vs. 717 is the character who first appeared in the What If Captain America issue number 1 out of 2005. Here we explore just that version of Steve, who served in the American Civil War as a Union soldier. In the end, he turns against his villainous Colonel Bucky Barnes, who in this reality becomes the supervillain White Skull. In so doing, Stephen becomes injured and is taken in and saved by the Eagle Chief, Wee Piak. Not only does the Eagle Chief save his life, but he also grants him extra strength, transforming him into the hero Captain America, who is armed with a mystical shield, peak human physique, and reflexes, and is rumored to be protected against all harm. This version of Captain America fights hard throughout the years to make sure the United States is a place of opportunity for all who call it their home. He truly represents the Captain America ideal of equality. Number 6. Ultimate Captain America. In the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, Captain America is considered to be even more powerful than his 616 counterpart. The super soldier serum here didn't just prolong his life and leave him in peak human condition across the board, increasing his strength, speed, and durability, but it also gave him an accelerated healing factor and put him at a superhuman level when it came to his strength and his speed. It was once claimed that Steve Rogers of this reality could bench press a car. Across the board, this version could be considered stronger than the 616 version, although I would argue that 616 Captain America does have better leadership skills than our 1610 version. But that's just me. Number 5. Danielle Cage. Danielle Cage is the future daughter of Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. This could be who the future little 616 Danielle Cage ends up as, or maybe not. Only time will tell if Danielle ends up having a similar future to this alternate version of herself and Captain America, or not. In this reality of Earth 15061, Danielle Cage grows up to become the hero Captain America, possessing the abilities of both her father and her mother, meaning she is both super strong and super durable and can fly, all that good stuff you've come to know and love from both Luke and Jessica's heroic power sets. As Captain America in the future, she also has inherited and wields the Captain America shield. Number 4. MCU Captain America. I mean, of course MCU Captain America has to make our cut. The Marvel Cinematic version of the character is not only extremely popular, but is also deemed worthy enough to lift Thor's hammer, giving us that awesome fight scene in Avengers Endgame where Thor and Captain America are switching back and forth, alternating between sharing and wielding Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. This ultimately gives Cap a big power boost, being able to wield Thor's weapons, especially considering that Thor is one of the most powerful members of the Avengers team, in part because of his powerful, magical, and also kinda cosmic weapons. Number 3. Carol Danvers. That's right, Carol at one point managed to become Captain America. This has actually happened in more than one reality, but for this list we're going to focus on the version of Carol Cap that comes from the Venomverse. She appears as Captain America in Venomverse War Stories and hails from the same reality as Venom Rocket, Earth 18197. In the story she appears in, Captain America Carol Danvers and Venom Rocket battle it out as Rocket is looking to cash in on a bounty for the Kree who want Carol Danvers. Venom Rocket and Captain America seem pretty evenly matched here, but in the end, Rocket does not manage to capture Carol, and Carol seemingly ends up the victor of that match, though undoubtedly left with a pretty big mess to clean up as a result of their destructive battle. Carol Danvers as Captain America still seemingly possesses some version of her Kree physiology and her 616 power set here, making her a pretty powerful alternate version of Captain America. Number 2. Super Soldier. Super Soldier hails from the Amalgam Universe. Stories and characters created using the combined lore of DC Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains and Marvel Comics' main roster of superheroes and villains. Super Soldier himself is an alternate version created by combining the heroes Captain America from Marvel and Superman from DC. Clark Kent ended up in the Super Soldier program during World War II, which used alien DNA taken from a corpse that was discovered to alter Clark Kent permanently, granting him superhuman powers. He is the combined power set of both Cap and Supes, making him pretty crazy powerful, although he also comes with his own highly dangerous villain as well, the Green Skull, and his own weakness to the ore known as Green K. so keep in mind he does have that weakness. Number 1. Soldier Supreme. Soldier Supreme is what you get when you combine the mystical powerhouse of Doctor Strange with the all-American war hero Captain America. The result is a character who happens to be tough, strong, fast, and a gifted fighter, while also possessing tons of mystical knowledge and abilities. Soldier Supreme hails from Warp World, the reality created by Gamora when she folded the universe in half using the power of the Infinity Stones. Here, Steve Rogers participated in the Super Soldier program, which was really a front for something less scientific and more magical in nature. Conducting a series of rituals, Dr. Morgan Erskine transformed Steven Rogers into the Soldier Supreme.